Hi everybody, so welcome to yet another interesting F&M show. And today we are very happy because we have Mr. Neeraj Bassi with us. He was with us 1 year back, and this is his second interview with us. And Neeraj is a veteran in the advertising industry, having spent more than 2 decades in the ad industry. He has worked with very famous brands like Ogilvy, JWT. He has worked in the research field, and he has been a regular visiting faculty at MICA also. And something special from the MICA side is he's a MICAN, he's a MICA alumni. And currently he's the Chief Strategy Officer at Cheil Communication. So I'm Falguni, welcoming Neeraj to the show. And today he's going to speak on how storytelling is shaping up in the digital world. So we are looking forward to discussing this with you, Neeraj. Welcome to the show, and over to my co-host sitting in Bangalore, Malhar.
Hey, thanks, Falguni, and welcome again, Neeraj. I am so delighted to have you back on the show. Uh, you were there on the erstwhile Black to Learn show, and if I remember correctly, you were the first guest there.
Yes.
So happy to have you back, and we look forward to hear from you on the topic storytelling in the digital world. Over to you, Neeraj, if you want to do a quick introduction, and then we.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you. It's lovely being here on your show. As I mentioned, it's very interesting sessions that you guys hold. I try to catch it as much as I can, and very happy to have been the first person on the show when you guys started on Blab, and very proud to be back again. In terms of introduction, Falguni has already said a lot. The only thing that I slightly disagree with her is that I'm not a veteran yet. I'm still a youngster. I'm still a person who's trying to learn as much as I can. I teach so that I can learn, and that's something that I share with Falguni. So we take sessions together at MICA, and it's good learning experience for me every time. And now that there is such a shift in the communication scenario, that every day is a new learning for us.
Yeah.
And I've spent a long time at Ogilvy, and close to around a decade of my experience is at Ogilvy. I started with mechan and servicing. Then I did a bit of qualitative research, quantitative research, and then I found my calling and planning at Ogilvy. Spent some time there, and then I wanted to explore the developing world of startups, and I moved out. And after doing that for around 1 year, I have joined Cheil, which promises a lot of action in the digital space. So, which is why I was very happy with the topic today. That how storytelling is something that I've done quite a bit at Ogilvy. Now I'm trying myself to extend that into the digital world. So that's a very current focus at my job. And we have recently done a very interesting campaign in the CSR space for Samsung. And not to boast, but right now it's become the most viewed campaign on YouTube, the Samsung CSR campaign. So which has been one very interesting way that we have been able to take forward the learnings of storytelling into the digital world.
So is this the same campaign which is driven by schools, where Samsung is doing a lot of work with schools, tablets and all?
Absolutely. Okay. So
Samsung
has an initiative called Smart Class, in which they have tied up with school. So the whole funda is that learning by rote makes it boring for students, and students drop out of education system. So Samsung is working hard with the educators, and they are providing them infrastructure like tablets, like smart screens, to make the teaching experience a lot more engaging. And this tie-up has been going on for quite some years. But recently, we have got very good cases of students doing very well. And this story that we have kept and we are showcasing is the story of a boy who went all the way for overseas to make a presentation, and he was part of a large delegation that was there, and it
Right.
was a very highly successful case. So that's what we are sharing right now. But there are lots of other cases that would be coming. So,
Hmm.
but moving from Samson back to storytelling, we've had lots of discussions, and that's one area that I talk at MICA also, that storytelling is very important part of communication, and stories connect with us at a personal level.
Yeah.
They leave a message behind without actually forcing it down our brain. They give good memory hooks and make a
Hmm.
deep connection with us. So one of the quotes that I use is from Seth Godin, when what he talks about in his book All Marketers Are Liars, that great marketers only do storytelling, and that's all
Hmm.
that the whole marketing is about. It's not about products, it's not about features. So that has been there for quite some time. And at Ogilvy, we learned the art of Indian storytelling, in
Hmm.
which the Navrasas concept as promoted by Piyush. And that has been one of the core fundamentals. And uh, Piyush clearly says that unless you ring, one of these rasas, you connect with people with
Hmm.
stories and connect with one of these rasas, you can't, make them move. You have to make the transition in people's mind through interesting stories. And the example that I share at some of my sessions is talking of one object and telling them different stories about it, and how the value of the same
Hmm.
object changes in people's mind. A pebble from street can be positioned as a rock from moon, and suddenly the value of it will
Hmm.
change from insignificance
Yes.
to something which is invaluable. So
In
storytelling is the
fact,
art. Yeah,
in fact, when you are saying this, I'm reminded of the INS Vikrant and the Bajaj bike uh, combination
absolutely.
of the storytelling, right?
Yes,
Piece of
yes.
steel which is from INS Vikrant all of a sudden becomes very precious.
Absolutely. Look at the power of that story. That
Yeah.
the pride of India that it's able to evoke, right? And from what I understand, the agency played a
Hmm.
strong role in
For
coming up with
sure.
the whole idea, in connecting the client with the dealers who were selling that scrap. So very interesting example that you have brought out, and one of the great examples that we have seen this year, the INS, the Bajaj V.
Hmm.
Uh, done by a very good friend, Saurabh, and his team at Leo Burnett.
Hmm.
Very good example of great stories. In fact, the other example that we keep on discussing are about the branded content, and how brands are using programs and content to drive home stories about their values. So the TVS Scooty has that girl in the city, in
Hmm.
which you integrate the product within the story, which is story about a girl and how she is finding life in a metro, and that whole story is weaved around the bike being a companion, and as to how the
Hmm.
value of the bike get integrated in the story. So that's another way that branded storytelling is coming into.
Hmm.
Uh, but the thing that I talk to people my age, who have been in advertising for long, the fundamentals of storytelling have actually
Hmm.
not changed so much, right?
Hmm.
You need a passion point. You need to connect with people's hearts, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's digital, whether it is the
Hmm.
TVC world, the storytelling needs to engage an emotion out of people, and it's no different in digital world
Hmm.
to that extent. The stories that are being popular right now, you guys would have seen the John Lewis ad that came out, right?
Yeah.
uh, the other one, which was done by Marks and Spencer, where Mrs. Claus makes it a point to
Hmm.
deliver the gift to the girl, the sister, and so those examples are also uh, emotive, classical storytelling done in the digital world. But there are certain elements of the digital world that we keep in mind while doing storytelling, there. One, that topicality is very, very important, right? So whatever is trending, whatever is happening right now, we need to weave stories around that, and you know that how quickly the trends change in the digital world. So
Correct, correct.
keeping up, keeping up with the trends is very, very important aspect of storytelling in the digital world. Then you can't fake a story in the digital world, right? So stories have to be real. The stories have to be about something that people can cross verify and see it to be true. So, which was another feedback that we were getting from the Samsung storytelling, that people were actually searching a lot more about all these classes. They wanted to know, hey, actually, what are they doing on ground? And they were quite impressed by the kind of efforts that have been going on for over the years. And that added to the positivity of the storytelling. So it needs to be real storytelling. And the third aspect, which is quite difficult to implement, but actually making the storytelling part of consumer. So rather than brand telling the story, if we can engage the consumers to tell the brand story, that give them the tools with which they promote the story further. That's a big high in the digital storytelling world, that we give the audience the implement. So again, a very interesting piece of work that I saw was from OLX, when they had given the implement to people to create their ads.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had done this campaign, which didn't was not as popular as the Bajaj V, but very interesting campaign where consumers were giving the implements to make a classified ad for themselves on OLX. So what a nice way to promote your brand through your consumers. So that's the stage in which we need to evolve. And the other aspect, which is something to be watchful about in a digital storytelling space, is that the pace of story dispensing is very, very quick. One needs to be aware of that. We saw that when Amir Khan suddenly
Yeah.
had the negative vibe, and Snapdeal was one of the promoters who had to think about it. And all these, the storytelling spreads very, very fast. And
Yeah.
as they say, the bad news spreads faster than the good news.
Yeah.
So this is more something to be watchful about, that we keep in mind as to how we need to manage the story. So another thing, that you can never have control over your storytelling in the digital world. The story will take its own course. You can guide it in some way, you can monitor it in some way, you can be watchful, but the story will take its own course.
In
So I've
fact,
been
I had
speaking a
a
lot.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Malhar, go ahead.
okay.
No?
Sorry to interrupt there. So what, just probably my thoughts, or something that we discussed previously on one of the shows, has CSR made it easy for brands to relate to and share their side of the story? Has that made it easier for brands?
Right. So CSR, actually, it's a very, very good question, because CSR is taking a new shape and new form in the digital world, and I'm seeing a lot more brands. So right now from CSR, it's more like public face, right? So there are lots of initiatives that brands are getting into, which may not be the typical kind of CSR where they contribute. So that's where the divide comes for me. The real CSR is when the brand is actually contributing to the society, whereas a lot of brands these days have an opinion on a social topic, right? And
So
then
yeah,
they take
they
out,
pick up the social cause and then put a story
Yeah.
together.
right. So there is a lot of trend that I see happening where a social cause is just talked about, right? Brands are promoting awareness about something. For me, that's not real CSR. Real CSR is your true work on the ground. What are you putting? Like some time ago, We had done something for Dabur, Saat Se 700 Kadam, wherein it was an on-ground activation that was coupled with the communication that went out for sanitation. When Swachh Bharat drive was happening,
Mm.
and Dabur actually made a contribution towards sanitation. So CSR in real sense needs to have an on-ground component with a contribution coming from the brand. You have to, put the money where the mouth is. Whereas a lot of brands are doing more kind of promotion. So they are taking a topic and associating with that topic through communication, which is also good to some extent. Saying there's
But
no harm that
Neeraj,
comes out of it.
But
Yeah.
Neeraj, all these like good brands that we talk about, like a Samsung or a Dabur or a Google, or a Hindustan Unilever product brand, I think they are using storytelling to promote their CSR further. So there is CSR
Right.
happening at ground level, but storytelling I'm using in
Right.
digital media to publicize it further to people like you and me who will never know what they're doing in a village which is far away from Nagpur. So I think, are
Completely.
they using
Agreed.
storytelling as their PR, brand PR building tool? Are they using storytelling for brand PR to communicate their CSR further?
Right. So the CSR aspect is adding a layer to the brand story.
Hmm.
Right. So the
Correct.
brand story is getting furthered through the
Content.
CSR effort. And as you said, that it takes the CSR to the next level also. So
Hmm.
if the brand has taken a certain step and then we are talking about it, then it becomes the responsibility of the brand to take it further,
Yes.
to go further in that and do more in that direction. And people also start contributing, start becoming part of that,
Right.
and and
In,
and the momentum goes further.
in fact, when I was looking at what Lifebuoy is doing in rural India, I was feeling CSR is giving them a lot of content for their storytelling. And it's becoming shareable content for the stakeholders.
Completely. But the all credit to levers that they do it,
Yeah,
support it with on-ground things. So
of
when
course.
they're doing, did you see the latest one? But that was not levers. That was Savlon that did. They did
Savlon,
dusters,
yeah. Yeah,
dusters with
I
soap.
saw.
But hand pump, hand pumps making they're making soaps that which have shapes of toy, right? Making hand pumps a machine, not a machine, say a contraption that makes making taking water out from hand pump a very interesting thing. These are real on ground things that they're doing, and then they overlay a storytelling on top of that. There's a storytelling element to use it to add that layer to the brand,
Right,
but there's real
right,
on ground thing happening at a CSR level.
So
right.
my
In,
question, Neeraj, would be what I hear or more examples we see are more consumer focused brands. Is it easier for consumer focused brands compared to B2B brands?
not really, because even B2B brands are doing great stuff. The example that comes to my mind is GE. They're do nothing, they're not much consumer facing. They sell heavy equipments, heavy material, but they are also using storytelling to tell the stories about the brand. See, now what is happening is that consumers are looking at interacting more with brands rather than a sell message from the brand. That's one trend that we have been noticing
Correct.
for quite some time. That consumers now want to know what you are about, what do you do, what is your philosophy. Remember, we used to last time. I think we had talked about brand purpose, and brand purpose becoming a great tool for branding. Now people want to interact even more with brands, in which this element of brand stories is relevant for B2B. It is relevant for B2C. It is something that all the brands would be latching on to in a very short while.
Yeah.
One more
In,
question, just
yeah, sure, sure,
sorry for this.
Malhar.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what the other point was, are brands overdoing the branded content storytelling?
Pardon me?
are brands overdoing? Say, what I see is branded storytelling is getting more. So probably they'll have a product placement in somewhere. Is that getting more, and how is that? Probably, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so very, very interesting question. And yeah, sometimes one.
Legend is on spot now.
Yeah.
But do you think some brands are over advertising? So it's
Yes.
like, so see, branded content is a move in the market that's happening now. Now it's a new field in which we won't get it right, some initially. We'll have to take some time to do a few communications and then take out, hey, now this worked, this did not work, this is the level of engagement that I should have, and things like that. So not just branded storytelling, even with big data and the kind of pushes that we have started getting, it is going overboard sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So there are some instances, I agree with you, wherein the even branded content gets, so when a Mother's Day, a Father's Day comes, every brand wants to latch on to it, even though they have no connection with Mother's Day as a brand philosophy or as a
Yeah.
category or anything. But I don't know whether I can use this example, but I'll still go ahead. Triumph in Singapore, which is a lingerie brand, took out an ad for Father's Day. Can you believe it? So they took out an ad, and I was quite flabbergasted that how could a lingerie brand be taking out a Father's Day ad? But they went ahead and they saw some opportunity to do some branded engagement around an event. So this anyway, I'm slightly digressing. Coming back to branded storytelling, that is the new way to connect. That is something that brands are exploring. Now, in that exploration, there will be aspects where brands go a little overboard. But for me, that's all fine right now, because we'll find the balance in the long run. We're still exploring this as a medium, and slowly it will all even out. Look
But
at this, right?
Sure. But
Okay.
Neeraj, your point of triumph advertising on a Mother's Day rather than occupying a Valentine's Day, for example, as a contextual branding, right? I
Right.
think it was bang on because the statement with which you started, that the truth and the roots of advertising have not changed. So that's where I
Complete.
think we all will have to learn. The basics of marketing are still the same. You have to stay true to your soul and character of branding. So I think the Triumph example was very well timed. So it reassures us with your notion that we have to still stay true to the roots of the advertising.
Completely. And not just so
Yeah.
there, actually, this reminds me of two other things that I've been quite. One is consistency. See, now in digital world, you need
Yes.
to, keep on telling. We call it the always on content, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In always on content, you need to be there out every moment. You need to connect with people over and over again. So
Correct.
consistency of the story is very, very important. You
True.
need to adopt a tone. You need to adopt a certain way you want to connect with people. And it's even more important because you'll be there again the next day. You will be sending out tweets day after day. You'll be putting Instagram posts, or you'll be doing something else on Facebook. So your content will be going out over and over again. So consistency of the brand,
Correct.
consistency of the personality is very, very critical. And I think a lot of brands are right now not as focused on that aspect. So the consistency of storytelling with terms of brand values is a very important aspect in the digital world, because the quantum of communication, the quantum of stories that will go out is very, very high.
Hmm.
And one needs to be very careful about that.
In fact, there is one question which is parked in my mind since a long time. And I'm taking advantage of the fact that you have worked in traditional mainstream advertising, and now, of course, as you are saying, the focus is any which ways across the world towards digital. So when you look at storytelling as a strategy, a creative and a effectiveness strategy, where do you find more scope? Do you find more scope of storytelling in the traditional medium, or do you find it more in the digital medium, or there are ways to play around in both?
So the easy answer would be both, but
I want the difficult one.
but actually I see, and that's a discussion. That's actually live discussions that we are having with
Hmm.
clients as to that in the digital world, the number of stories, the number of engagement that you can do is a
Hmm.
lot higher, right? It is
Okay.
just that we don't see right now that as storytelling. I'll give you an example. If we do how-to videos, right?
Yeah.
There's an unboxing video that happens. Now
Hmm.
we can do a straight video, and you take a piece and you do the unboxing and you do things like that. That this is what the feature happens, and do a how-to
Hmm.
video, or we can overlay a story in which
Hmm.
the feature is dovetailed into it, right?
Hmm.
We make it a real life use occasion, right? So
Hmm.
the opportunities of storytelling and the layering of stories in digital world is a lot there. The the
Hmm.
the, the traditional world, always you had to have a story before you go out, right? You and the other advantage in traditional world was the time you got to
Yeah.
start preparing. So in fact, I was talking to one girl in my team, and she was telling me that by the time the traditional media does one TVC, lots and lots of content is passed on by brands in the
Right.
digital world. So the time gestation period for the communication to come out in the traditional world is a lot longer versus the time that we have to come back with stories. And this is my
Right.
current interesting example that I learned from another person in my team. So we handle Adidas digital duties for Adidas, and he was telling me that we were doing the campaign for the World Cup, and in World Cup the response rate that they had put out for themselves was
Hmm.
60 seconds. If
Hmm.
an event happens in the stadium, within 60 seconds, they were out with a tweet. Now,
Okay.
and they were so strict that it was if it was 61 seconds, they will not send the tweet out.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of response, that's the kind of quickness that is required. So which requires a very different kind of setup.
Yeah.
It requires a different kind of approval process. So that's another live conversation with clients as to how do they give the authority and who is authorized to send that tweet out. You remember the
Yes.
famous one done by Oreo that you can dunk in the dark when there was
Yes.
a
Yes. Yes.
blackout
Yes. Yes.
in US. So there has to be a
Yes.
system. So in
Hmm.
fact, that is another pet project of mine right now as to how to systematize the quickness, the response rate of digital storytelling. That you need to be quick on the uptake. And
Hmm.
in one of the previous client interaction, we used to wait a long time for approvals and things like that. But now we are working towards systems, towards processes where you need to be on the go. You need to create a
Yeah.
story basis your brand personality and have it out in the
Hmm.
next quickest time.
Yeah.
Falguni, one question since we are talking about digital versus traditional. I want to add one more layer to it. What about the current, I would say, trend of live streaming? Are brands ready to leverage live streaming?
Hmm. Good
Very
one.
interesting again. Very interesting again. In fact, there's lots and lots of new media coming, and so that's actually another interesting aspect of digital storytelling, that the media also makes a big impact on your story. So if I tell you a story via a live stream versus telling you a story which is recorded, there's a completely different response that you'll get from the consumers. So if I tell you a story which is say from a camera phone versus tell you a story which is 360-degree camera, the story impact will be very, very different. So it's a
Different, yeah.
very, very, very interesting point that you are raising, that the kind of tools, that the kind of implement that you use for your storytelling, what tool in digital world also makes such a big difference. And I'll tell you one storytelling that I just recently came across, and I shared it also on social media, was about Gear VR. So, there is content that plays well on Gear VR. There's certain kind of stories that go very well with Gear VR, and that impact will not come in any other way that you tell that story. So, if you are exploring a city, or say exploring a monument, say exploring a museum, if you tell that story through a 360 camera and a Gear VR, the impact of that story becomes manifold, right? So in the same
True.
way, using live is a very, very potent tool. But then the thing is that the comfort level, that what if
Yeah.
something goes wrong,
Skills. Yeah.
and those things. In fact, this reminds me of something that another digital planner told me about, that actually consumers are leading the kind of storytelling in digital world than brands. So he gave me the example that actually cinematograph, or no, the GIFs were first used by consumers.
Yeah.
There are lots of things in digital storytelling, and the kind of storytelling that gets popular in digital world, which is consumer generated, and brands are actually following. Have you guys seen the mannequin challenge?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Have
I'm
you
going
guys
to
tried
take
it?
up one day. I'm going to take up one day.
But have you seen any brand do it yet? I haven't.
Uh, Organization as a brand, yes,
Right.
but
So
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of organizations I've seen, like we had
Yes.
that White House mannequin challenge, and
Yes.
the sports, lots of things have tried as teams done the mannequin challenge,
Yeah.
but no brand I have seen yet, right?
Yeah.
So brands are still lagging on a trend that's ripe right now. So consumers leading the storytelling is another very interesting point, and the impact of what media, what tool you use to tell your storytelling is a excellent point that you brought out. That how you tell your story, what do you use to tell
Correct.
your story, is a very important element in the digital world.
Correct.
Right. So we are little over time, but I am so happy that we are going over time. So it's okay. Uh, just a quick, the last one for this session, Neeraj. If you want to pick out three key takeaways or three key messages for storytelling in digital age, what would be that?
So for me, in digital world, storytelling has to be real. You can't take a story. You can't get away by saying something which is not true. So it has to be real. Second, it has to be as much topical as possible, because nobody is interested in an old story. In fact, we did a campaign for UC browser which had the line UC nahi to BC. You are before Christ if you're not on UC, because the
Oh
trendingness
God.
of the trendingness of the news is really critical. So it has to be topical, it has to be current. And thirdly, it should come through people, that your story, you should have more organic. The word that we use is organic, that the stories need to be organic and they need to travel on their own. We can the initial spurt these days, given the clutter, the initial spurt can be given by the brand initial, but after that people should pick up that story, and people should start spreading it forward as their story and as something that they would like to share, and move forward. So these would be three critical aspects for me in digital storytelling: the aspects of emotional connectivity, the aspect of making it personal, the aspect of, connecting with one of the nine emotions, all the traditional aspects still remain.
Mm.
But these are specific for the digital world, that
Mm.
you need to make it current, you need to make it topical, real, and organic promotion, and connects with people and moves further.
Super. Falguni, any last points from you?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Neeraj. In fact, it was very, very interesting. And I think we should end this F&M show because we have Neeraj on the show who is like advertising expert. But the advertising industry today has lost a genius, Mr.
Yeah.
Anand Halve. So, and I had a very close encounter with him. He had come to teach in my courses at MICA, true gem of a person, a big, big, big genius, big loss to the advertising industry. I feel it's like a personal loss when I heard it. So I end this by paying like my fondest regards to him, and may his soul rest in peace, and may he keep blessing the advertising fraternity and students especially. Yeah,
Completely. A great, great personality we have
great.
lost.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeraj, and thanks, Falguni. Thanks so much, and good night to you. And
Thank you, Malhar. Signing
Okay.
off.
yeah,
Yeah.
signing off. Thank you.